We just have to grow our curiosity and learn from one another rather than judging one another. And I think in this day and age, this is so important for everyone to learn and hear.
Hello and welcome to episode 242 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. On today's episode, we are joined by Samina Chowdhury, a top producing agent out of Maryland with more than 22 years in the industry. As a first-generation immigrant, Samina has a unique understanding for working with international clientele and understanding cultural differences. Throughout our conversation, Samina shares how seeking out top mentors throughout her career has led to success, how a focus on social media marketing grew her business, and how she works with those international clients. But before we get on with today's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All right, let's get on with our conversation with Samina. I really enjoyed our time, and if you would like to connect with her, be sure to check out the episode description for links to all of her social channels. Really, the way I like to get started is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us who you are and where you are located.
My name is Samina Chowdhury, and I'm a real estate agent in Maryland. And I have been practicing real estate for the last 22 years. And currently, I am in the top 5% of realtors in the state of Maryland. And I speak 5 languages, and most of my clientele are international, basically.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to dive into the international clientele. But before that, what got you interested in real estate? Tell me about your journey, getting into the industry.
Okay, so my background is I went to Maryland Institute. I'm a interior design major, so houses were always something that I loved looking at, and trying to improve, the creative mind, trying to see what I could do to make the house better and all that. That slowly got me into real estate because my husband and I, we figured that we wanted to invest in some real estate. So I got my license, started practicing, and then realized that really enjoyed doing this, and dived in more, took a lot of courses, classes, and I've been fortunate with a lot of mentors who are big in the industry today. Some to name are Brian Buffini, and then my current mentor is Ryan Serhant, from the Netflix show Owning Manhattan.
Right.
So, so I've always been fortunate with, trying to get mentored by top agents out there, and taking their techniques, implementing it into my business, and taking it to the next level.
Was seeking out top mentors, was that something that you were always,
Yes.
looking for? Or did that transition through your career?
Yes, because I feel that, if you don't have a mentor, you're just trying to figure things out on your own. It takes a long time. And a mentor will guide you on what not to do and how to do things a certain way to speed up the process to go to the next level at all times. So throughout my career, I got my license in 2004. 2006, I realized that the market was shifting. The 2007-8 market was shifting, and it would be difficult. That's when I got my first mentor, Brian. And Brian taught me how to do business by referral, and he said that, from the time you start with me, after 6 months, you will start seeing some referrals coming in. And by the time it's 3 years, once you hit the 3-year mark, you'll never look back. And he was so on the dot. He said that it's almost like having a car in winter, having a car in the garage. You don't just start the car and start driving. You warm it up, right? You warm it up, and then you drive slow till the engine heats up, and then you drive fast. So that's how the business is. You have to give it time to warm up.
Right.
Plant the
Absolutely.
seeds, you know.
Right. Absolutely. For somebody that's listening to this, and I know, for a lot of people, reaching out to a mentor and really, um, trying to get ingrained with one can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, to actually just make that step to actually reach out to somebody. A, what would you say to those people? And B, what are some maybe your tips for actually reaching out and really getting ingrained with a mentor?
Um, just reach out, just make the call, and just say that, hey, I'm a new agent. I need help, and I've seen what you have to offer, and I'm interested. They will jump in. I mean, with Ryan, I'll give you an example. It was 2020. So why? First of all, let me back up. Why I made the switch from Brian Buffini to Ryan Serhan. See, every agent goes through peaks and valleys and plateaus. Okay. So I went through peaks several times and then I plateaued. And several times Brian showed me different things to do to make that shift and break through the plateau and go to the next level. Okay. But around 2020, like 2019, 2020, I was still struggling. And I was seeing that Brian's techniques, I mean, I knew it all almost, to the
Right.
point that I was actually uh, a teacher for his course, and I realized that this I needed a different change, like a different mentor to tell me what was the new thing. And 2020, midst of COVID, we were all at home sitting, and I was binge watching on $1 Million Listing New York, and then I thought that, okay, let me check out these agents and their websites and then Ryan's website had a marketing um, course that he was offering for about $500. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I love learning, so I feel that you stop learning, you stop growing, in my opinion. You know, so I was learning, and I get a call from Ryan's office. Oh, Ryan Serhan wants to talk to me. Ryan Serhan wants to talk to me. Okay. So he comes on a Zoom call, and his first thing was, and now this is, mind you, December of 2020. He's talking to me. This whole year, whatever I did, that 2020, in midst of COVID, like full blown COVID, right?
Right.
So he's like, "How many houses did you sell this year?" I said, "I sold 50 houses." He looks at me like, "You sold 50 houses?" I said, "Yeah." And he again asked me, "You sold 50 houses?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "You told me, you tell me, you called me, you wanted to talk to me." He's like, "If I coached you, what is the one thing I could do for you to help you improve? What is that one?" I said, "Ryan, I'd rather sell 30 houses, but make money as if I sold 80 houses, which you
Right.
do."
Right.
So he's like, "Well, basically take you to luxury." I'm like, "Yes."
Hmm.
And um, that's when he started coaching me. And it was interesting because to break through the luxury market, he asked me, what price range defines luxury in your market? I said 850. That's the break point. So he said, okay, you'll sell your 350s and your 650s and your 550s. The moment you cross the 850 and make a sale, I want you to shout it off the mountains. So what is shouted off the every platform that I have? And you know what happened then, Michael? It was very interesting what shift happened then when I started doing that. Within 6 months, I had a good sphere that people knew me, but I never got calls from these. All of a sudden, these people started calling me from my sphere, like, "Oh, now she's capable. Yes, we'll use her." That shift happened with Ryan's thing.
Right. So before that, were you real active on social media and promoting your
I was
listings?
somewhat active, but not
Hmm.
very active, and that was the shift that needed to happen
Yeah.
at that time. That plateau I had to
Hmm.
break through, I needed to be very much in social media. That's when I started doing videos, like, you know, teaching videos, giving points and everything. I'll be honest. I was not comfortable in front of the camera. And one of the best tips Ryan gave me, and I every 3 months I was seeing him, whether it was New York or whether he was in Vegas doing something. I was flying to see him and getting coached personally. And that's when he said that, look, I said, Ryan, how do you do it? I see you, because he started telling me, go to your listings and start doing tour videos and put it on YouTube, Facebook, and everything, so that people know what active life you have as a real estate agent.
Right.
So I started doing that, but I was not comfortable. I mean, you know, take after take after take, all that happening. And then what changed through that was I was in Vegas with him. Like, Ryan, I watch your videos all the time. I see you're so comfortable in front of the camera. And I just feel, he's like, okay, what goes in your mind when you're in
Mhm.
front of the camera? And I said that, I feel like, oh, so many people are going to judge me. They might think I have this funny accent. I don't know how I dress. I'm thinking all those things. He's like, no, don't. And then he's like, who's your best friend at work? So I said, Jerry. And, he, then he comes close and he's like, the camera is Jerry.
Right.
Talk to the camera like it's Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I come back, Michael. I do the next video. The videographer is like, I don't know what he told you, but it's worked. You don't have any retakes. Go.
Right. That's
And then I
awesome.
started watching those. I'm like, yeah, actually, I was more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's uh my previous life, I was a videographer for a television station, and we always had, every couple months we'd get brand new reporters in, and they were always so nervous. And then finally, I used to have them bring a picture of a family member, dad, their mom, and I would tape it on the bottom of the camera to make them more comfortable and more personable. And it, when you get past that whole idea of, you're talking to a huge audience to talking to, one singular person, it does make it much more comfortable. But once you started doing that, tell me about how the business changed for you. You said you had people calling you, um, and trust you. So I have
Yeah,
to imagine
that's
doing
where
those videos.
the amount of luxury houses I sold, I've never sold before. That was the shift that happened. And then from there, I mean, even to the point that I started, and again, my background is design, right? So I'm very critical about how my website will look and all that. It was interesting that I went to the first mastermind with Ryan, and his website guy was like, we were just 12 agents from all over US. And he said, I looked at all your websites, and only one person had all the stuff in their website that should be there, and it was Samina's. I was like, really? Wow, very surprising.
Yeah.
But fast forward that, I had my YouTube videos. I opened my YouTube channel, and then TikTok came into the picture. Instagram came into the picture, doing videos on Instagram, those things. Slowly, edition after edition, LinkedIn, talking in LinkedIn, and then, doing podcast now, my own podcast. So this is how I've evolved over the years, in the last 3 years. And even I started getting on publications. Like the first year, I was on the cover of Forbes. And what we don't look at ourselves, who we are, but other people do. Forbes looked at me um, like they asked me just one simple question: what makes you unique in the industry? I said that I think the best way I can describe is I take your culture and heritage and I fit it into today's American homes. For them, that was huge. Wow. Okay. How many agents can do that? Understand the culture and heritage a family is coming from and show them a house that makes them see that how their culture and heritage fits into today's American homes.
Right, absolutely, and that's a topic I want to dive into because you talked about, a big portion of your client base is the international client base. So, I guess first off, how do you go about, uh, gaining those clients and marketing to yourself as that person that can help, bridge that gap between the American lifestyle and their culture.
Well, first off, I mean, it's usually word of mouth that happens. Oh, Samira did such a good job. You should use her. She knows. She knows the culture. She knows our culture. It happens like that somewhat. Somewhat also, I'm in an area where it is very diverse culture. So in this DMV area, lot of international clientele staying, and actually, believe it or not, 60% of the population in my children's school district are all international. And to cater to that clientele, saying, I know your culture, I know your lifestyle, because I've grown up in that culture and lifestyle. I know what's important to you. Plus, I speak your language. So that brings in a whole level of warmth and being personable, like, to them, like, tell me. And they feel so comfortable, discussing a lot of things. And when they're saying some things, I can understand where it's coming from because it's in the culture. The negotiation, the type of negotiation is different than the American culture. And that's when I pinpoint that to them and say that, hey, that might happen in your company. I mean, in your country, it's a little different here in the US. How many agents can even identify that and tell them that? I can, because I know where they're coming from, where their thought process is coming from,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So I have to imagine a lot of those conversations, like the negotiation tips, and how maybe things are different culturally. I have to imagine those are conversations that you can have early on
yes.
in the relationship, so that those don't become quote unquote problems. You've already addressed them, and so that it's not some pain point that
It's
comes up along the
sometimes it's
process.
it's something that I keep addressing till the transaction is over, believe it or not, because they're so used to it, they forget. And I have to consistently remind them that, hey, by the way, remember we had this conversation. You can't do that here. This is different. And I've even, to the point that I my lenders are from the same culture.
Mhm.
My not just the client, and even an inspector would be from the same culture. So stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely can see how that really makes the clients comfortable throughout the entire process.
Right.
I definitely understand that. What are some of the things, maybe, when you're showing a home that would be, something that, you would highlight for maybe an American client versus, a client from another country? What are some of those things that culturally would be very different for maybe an American agent to maybe understand?
I'll give you one example. Like, in India, for example, south of India, they are very much into feng shui. Now, there's the Chinese feng shui, Michael, and then there's the Indian feng shui. The Chinese feng shui, they call it feng shui, but the Indian feng shui, they call it vastu. I had to learn certain rules of vastu to make them understand. I'm with a compass when I'm showing a house with them. If it doesn't, if the feng shui of the house doesn't work for them, they're not buying that house.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah. Wow. That is I mean,
I'll give you a short interesting story. I was showing a house to this one guy, and every time we entered the house, I would give him the listing copy. He would turn the page and he would draw the layout of the whole house. If he really liked it, he would take it home, fax it to his priest, and tell him that, based on my birth chart, can you tell me and my wife's birth chart, would this house be good for us? And he really liked this one house. And the listing agent even called me and said, "Oh, Samina, I always love working with you. You always bring the best clients. What is the feedback?" I'm like, "Well, hold on for 2 days. This is what the situation is. He'll get back to me." He got back to me and he's like, "No, it's not going to work."
oh no.
Obviously, my curiosity went up. I'm like, "Okay, why doesn't it work?"
Right.
So he said that the priest told him two things. The first one he was completely okay with, but the second thing he was like, no, it's not going to happen. The first thing he said was, if you move into the house, your wife is the one who's going to wear the pants in the family. And he's like, hey, I'm totally okay with that.
Right.
Let her do that. Okay. And, but the second thing he said was that towards the end of like their life, towards the last stages of their life, she will develop cancer and die, and he will, their marriage won't survive also. He will
Oh
leave
wow.
her, and she will die with cancer. And that scared him. So obviously that ended there. And the listing agent's assistant called me, and she's like, oh, it wanted me to ask you, what happened. I'm like, this is what they said. Immediately she like, stop, you're giving me goosebumps. I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, Samina, did you see the seller? I said, no. She's like, well, the seller is an old lady. Her husband left her, and she's dying of cancer. That's why she's selling the house. That gave me goosebumps, Michael.
Yeah, I think it would give me goosebumps. I think anybody in that situation.
So, like Vastu, this is how much they care when it comes to Vastu, and they're like, no, we take it very seriously. And me catering to their Vastu rules and regulations, yeah, I that is what makes me stand out and be different. When I'm going through the house, the Indian culture, they don't call five people to the house, they call 50 people to the house. Before we even enter the house, how much parking are there
Yeah.
to cater to
Yeah.
that?
Right.
Sometimes in the Muslim culture, for example, the men sit in one room, the women sit in. I'm picturing, making them picture that lifestyle when I'm showing. I'm like, this is where the men will sit, this is where the women can sit, and when I'm showing all that, they're picturing their lifestyle in the house. So that's what makes it unique.
Yeah. Well, and I have to imagine by being able to interact with so many different cultures, you said you love learning. And I think that's so cool. Like you're able to learn so much about different people's cultures and different people's way of life. I think that's one of the really great things about real estate is you get to meet so many different people, but in your particular,
Yeah.
the way you do it.
And I'm a first generation immigrant, so I also look at things in a different way, Michael. I did a TED talk actually, and the TED talk topic was the three principles of communication that connects the world. And the first principle was that differences in culture don't have to divide us, they can unite us. We just have to grow our curiosity and learn from one another rather than judging one another. And I think in this day and age, this is so important for everyone to learn and hear. And just say that, hey, you're not odd or weird, you're just different. And different is okay to be different, just learn. Every culture has good and bad. And I taught my children that you grew up with two cultures, take the best of both cultures and make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, ability to learn from your neighbor. I think it's my kids. They're in their school that they're in is very diverse as well.
Mhm.
Actually, a lot of Indian
Mhm.
families live in our neighborhood, so they're a very diverse neighborhood, and I love that they are getting exposed to the different holidays and the different traditions that
Yes.
their
So
classmates.
my kids celebrate Christmas.
Mhm.
Thanksgiving is huge for us.
Right.
So I mean, we just grew up in this culture.
Yeah.
That wasn't the thing when I grew up, back home.
Right. Tell me about, so you mentioned your TED Talk and then you also have your podcast. Tell me about, you know, uh, doing those types of things and networking with other professionals and how that's helped your career.
Yeah. I mean, with the podcast, what's interesting is you get to meet a lot of people in a strategic way. You grow your network in a very strategic way. Growing your network is good, provided every person in your network is, somebody you can leverage
Right.
from. So I think podcast is a good medium to do that. And then I also speak publicly now. So people call me to go and speak in different topics. I've been to Dubai a few times. They've called me there. Last December, they called me. I spoke, and they even gave me Businesswoman of the Year award. I mean, having an award in your field in another country is something amazing.
Right.
And they're calling me again in December. October, I'll be in Doha. June in Hong Kong. So getting called in different platforms and to speak about how to be a top producer, what are the different topics. I mean, I even, learned recently, I took courses on neuroplasticity, believe it or not. How you can hack your brain to subconsciously do things which you really don't like to do, but it becomes a part of you. Yeah. So when I talk about things like that, people want to hear more. So they call me.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, that's crazy to think that, in 2020, uh, you were uncomfortable being on camera and all these things. And now you're flying around the world, speaking in front of groups.
Yeah,
It's
and
amazing.
now I call myself a global real estate advisor because Michael, through those, now I'm with Keller Williams. Keller Williams is in 180 countries in the world. Every country before I visit, I love traveling. So even whether it's a personal trip or business trip, everywhere I go, before I go, I call the Keller Williams agent there. Hey, I'm coming. Can I meet with you? You get to meet a Keller Williams agent, and I do quick interviews with them. I tell them like, hey, can we come on camera? If I were to send you somebody who wants to buy here, like in Dubai, for example, I have Farouk in Dubai, and I said, Farouk, if I want to send somebody, let's get on camera and just talk. And he's like, yeah. And then somebody, imagine, I have Farouk in Dubai, I have Omar in Turkey, I have Mehmet in London, I have Joao in Portugal. Imagine all of them saying one line. Hey, I'm Farouk in Dubai. I'm Mehmet in London. We are here with Samina Chowdhury to help you buy here in London or Dubai or Portugal. They're saying that and on video, and they're saying, if you need any help, we are here for you. We partnered with Samina Chowdhury. Imagine the power of that. I sold a house in Portugal. I've never been to Portugal.
Wow.
The world has become very small.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. Well, before I let you go, tell me, what are obviously it has been amazing growth. Not just in the amount of homes you've sold or anything like that, but just personally, professionally. Um, tell me what are some of the goals for the rest of the year and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, initially when I started, I was, with your DNA. Basically, you're inclined. You're either a very good buyer agent, or you're either or a very good listing agent. But then again, in our world, they always say that when you're a listing agent, you're an employer. When you're a buyer agent, you're an employee. So last 2 years, I shifted to becoming a listing agent.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Tell me, for anybody that's wanting to connect with you online or learn more from the videos, podcasts that you're doing, tell me where they can follow you.
Okay, Samina Sells, SELLS, SaminaSells.com, or they can go to Sell It Like Samina in YouTube and see my podcast. And they can even contact me at 301-502-2944. Happy to help. Thank
Awesome.
you.
I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yes, thank you.
I want to thank Samina for joining us today. I think it's incredible that she's been able to transform her career in such a short period of time. Remember, if you'd like to follow or connect with Samina, be sure to check out the episode description. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.